It's about that time. We're about to receive our guests, and we're excited to have that conversation coming. Yeah, so we're gonna. It's our contract attorney.
Hmm.
She's been serving South Florida for quite some time now, and anything that has to do with business ventures, registering business and stuff like that. She'll be able to tell us, if we're selling our business, what it entail, what type of
Hmm.
contract, what to watch for, and also if you're buying a business.
Yep.
I never thought of these things, and after having a conversation with her, and it was I believe that it's only right that we bring her in and have that conversation and see, because we always think that having a business, we just have a business, but we don't know what it entail behind the as far as having a partner, or what type of contracts that we need to have, or maybe doing business with a family member. Do you need a contract or not? And so
Exactly.
I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now's the
Yes.
time if the entrepreneurs to tap in
Mm-hmm.
and people
Of
who own
course,
businesses
man.
for sure.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, indeed. So I hope you guys liking the show so far, and we have a lot. So remember, this is our first show. We have a whole lot more. We're just asking for you guys to just subscribe to the channel, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you guys at. Just please, wherever you're watching us, just please subscribe to the channel. And we have a whole lot more coming. And I'm just excited for this, man. I'm
Me
just
too.
excited.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
And
So,
now,
so,
without further
so
ado,
excited.
our special guest. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. It's great to be here, guys.
All right. All right. All right. Good to see you. How's everything?
Everything's great. It's a
Good.
beautiful day in South Florida.
It is. It is.
Yes.
So tell the viewers who you are and where you're coming from.
Okay. My name is Mayelin Stevenson, and I am a business attorney here in Florida, also in the Dominican Republic, where I'm from. I was born and raised there. I went to law school there, was a licensed attorney by the age of 22.
Wow.
And then I moved here to the United States, and obviously, it's a completely different legal system.
Right. Right.
So I work firm in Fort Lauderdale. Decided if I want to practice law, I'm going to have to do law school all over again. So I went to Nova, graduated in 2020, and
Yeah.
I've been practicing in the areas of class actions and civil and commercial litigation for the past 6 years or so.
That's
Incredible.
good. That's good. That's good.
Incredible. We're blessed to have you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for joining
I'm
us.
blessed to be here and very
Right.
excited.
That's good.
Awesome.
So why did you choose law school?
That's a very good question. I grew up surrounded by the law, by lawyers and judges. My mom is a judge in the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
so I was very close to the law. I
Mm.
initially wanted to become a diplomat,
Oh wow.
but as you know, diplomacy is very tied to politics.
That's right.
And I just didn't want to have a job where if the next government comes in, I'm out of a
You out of a
job,
job.
Mm.
Right.
until the next
Smart.
administration.
Yep.
Smart.
So I decided, okay, well, law is close enough, and it's a degree that allows you to do a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Right.
So I went to law school and then decided to move here right away. So I didn't practice there as an attorney, but I did work as a law clerk for a firm there for 2 years while I was going to school.
Okay. So how long did you go to law school for?
So in the Dominican Republic, law school is 4 years.
Mhm.
And then here in the States, obviously they require you to have a bachelor's
Right.
first, which
Right.
for me was
Okay.
the like a bachelor of law. And then here it was another 3 years because it was like a graduate degree, a Juris Doctor.
So
Did you? Yeah, go ahead.
7 here and 4 there.
No, so it was four there and
Uh-huh.
then three here.
Okay, so 7 total.
Seven total, yes.
Mm.
Mhm.
What was there a time where you say, man, this is just too much? I just want to give up.
Yes. There was a time when I was doubtful about going to school again here because it is very hard. I think law school here is 10 times harder than it was in
Mm.
the DR.
Wow.
The
Mm.
method is different. You read so much.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I had never read so much in my life. So I was doubtful that I could make it in the first place because English was not my first language.
right.
So law school is already hard for regular people.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, this is an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
But then once I was in, it was challenging. I mean, I had to put in the work and I was working full time too. So I was going to school at night and it was a challenge and I'm very proud of having achieved it. Yes.
That's
It's
good.
amazing.
That's good. Well, good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so by going through all of this, right? And what you went through, and now you're an attorney, would you, if someone were to say, oh, a younger you come in and said, I would love to become an attorney. Do you think this is a path or a career you would tell your younger self to do, or anybody else? Tell them, go for it. It's worth it.
That's a really good question. And I'm gonna tie it back to what you asked me before about why law.
Right.
Not only did I see that a lot growing up, but I think personally I have a high sense of justice and wanting to see people treated the same.
Right, right,
Um,
right, right.
and for truth and authenticity. So I think all of that led me into this path, and
Right.
I do believe it. I like helping people, so I think being a lawyer really allows you to do that in a very special way. So I would say yes. I mean, it's a very honorable profession. It is tough. It is stressful at times. You do work long hours.
Right.
It is a hard process, but I think if you have the qualities and those values that you want to help people, you care about justice, and you care about fairness, I think it's a great career.
I love
Well,
that.
that's good. That's good. So what I'm gonna ask you is that so we're gonna jump into some of the questions that when we told some of the people that have businesses and said we were gonna interview a contract attorney and said, well, we have some questions. So we know that having, because we at the Impact Library, we also set up businesses, but there's more to just setting up business. So we know that the LLC, right, is supposed to shield your assets, right? But sometimes it's it doesn't happen that way because maybe certain things that happens within the business and then you ended up getting in trouble. Can you talk about that?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I think people need to know that because you go on Sunbiz, you open an LLC. What is an LLC? It's a limited liability company.
Mhm.
What that means is for me as a person, for you as individuals, you have assets. You have your home, you have bank accounts, you have retirement accounts, you have vehicles, you have other investment properties, etc. And then you have a business. You want the assets of that business to be separated from your individual assets so that when something happens, if there's a claim against your company, then that person, if they prevail and they get a judgment against the company, they can only access the assets of that company, which are separate from your personal, from
Got
your
it.
own.
Got it.
Smart.
Got it.
Smart.
So people think, okay, I go on Sunbiz, I open an LLC, and that's enough. I'm protected, but that is not always the case.
That's right.
There are exceptions in the law, what we call piercing the corporate veil.
Mm.
And that is, well, we think your company and yourself as a person are so intertwined that there is no shield, there is no difference. Therefore, if there is a judgment against that corporation, we might be able to access your assets as an individual because why? Because maybe you were commingling funds,
Right.
because maybe you weren't observing the formalities of a corporation
Right.
or of a company. There are different things that people don't take into consideration. For example, I always recommend have an operating agreement.
Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
not legally required, but it's so important, especially when you go into business with other people, because that delineates how that company works.
Okay.
How do you get into that company? How do you get out? How do you buy your partner out? How do you make decisions? How are distributions made?
Yep.
So that is something that is very important, and that is a a corporate formality.
Wow.
If there are changes in that company structure,
Right.
let's say BJ, you were the manager and now I become the manager, then we should have a proper consent. We should have a proper meeting. We should
Right.
so all of those corporate formalities will aid and help in keeping that shield.
Rules of
Gotcha.
engagement, if you will.
Yes, exactly. Just keep the formalities that are required under the law so that you can keep the protections that you have under the law for
That's
an
great.
LLC.
That's great. Good stuff. So what about a single member LLC? Because we know that this is also in South Florida, this is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And people just wanna start an LLC. They like, well, I register, but it's by themselves. But sometimes you have a wife or, it could be divorce, it could be what's the difference between that and the LLC?
Yes. So that's very important too, because I can have a business and my husband is not necessarily a part of that business.
Okay.
And that's an important distinction. Why? Whether it's yourself or you're with a partner that is not your spouse, that is important because let's say a divorce comes along,
Mm-hmm.
there are rules in the family laws
Right.
that, okay, does my spouse get a share of this?
Mm.
Do they get a piece of the pie of this company that they're not a part of? So the operating agreement, again, sometimes will have a consent of the spouse saying, I am management in this company, I divorce the member or the owner, or to the contrary, I will, because why? Maybe you and I are in a company and we are partners in that company,
Yep.
but that doesn't mean you want to be my husband's partner.
Right.
That's
So
right.
if we
That's
get
right.
divorced, you don't want that guy to come in and have management rights.
Correct.
He might get a profit because of our divorce,
Right.
but he doesn't necessarily get a say in our company because that's not his business. That's my business with
That's
you.
right. Right.
It
So-
sounds like a business prenup.
It
Exactly.
is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
And sometimes you have to look at those documents. I'm not a family lawyer, but sometimes I have to ask my clients, okay, you and your spouse are going into business, but do you have a prenup? Do you have a postnup that we have to review and then tailor the operating agreement accordingly?
Wow.
Yeah, that's
good
exactly
stuff.
that's a marriage right there.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while you said, you talk about partners, right? So let's say me and Ryan, so we open a partnership LLC, right? So when we do that, have you ever come across, maybe you may have had a client and they just register on Sunbiz a partnership LLC, right? And they've done nothing else. Has there been any problems between them because they didn't draft the proper contracts?
Yes. I mean, you see that all the time, pre, during, post.
Okay.
Most times people start the relationship and everything is great.
It's always like
You are
that.
excited about
Always
the
like that.
business.
The honeymoon phase.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Everything's gonna work. We get along amazing. Nothing's ever gonna go wrong.
Right.
That is the magical thinking
Until
that
it
we
does.
have. Until it does.
Yeah.
And then you wish you had an agreement in writing.
Right.
Now everybody's just upset. Now there's nothing to go on. That's what happens most of the time. So that's why I recommend when you're in that honeymoon phase, that's the best time. Just do it then.
Exactly.
It's not a signal of distrust.
Right.
It's a signal of we want to do things correctly.
Yeah.
Things happen. It's
Yeah.
not even
No, you're right.
necessarily bad things. I could get sick
Yeah.
Yep.
and I am unable to run the business.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe you want to buy my share out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be, maybe I want to move to Spain tomorrow. That would be amazing. But
Yeah.
just prepare for contingencies, and that is the best time.
Why not protect everyone involved?
Right.
Make it a win-win situation.
And that's
Yeah.
where that's the next question that I was gonna ask you. People tend again every year we all want to start a business, and I believe the government, even the state, just makes so much money. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars every year because everyone wants to start a business. It's the
Exactly.
beginning of the year. They have no bylaws, no articles of incorporation. Why does that matter when you have a business?
It matters for different reasons. Look, if you have a business, you might need lenders
Right.
to lend you money.
Right.
You may want to go to the bank tomorrow and have a loan.
Okay.
Mhm.
The bank is going to ask you for those documents.
Okay.
Of course they are.
Okay. The bank is going to ask you for your articles of incorporation. They will probably ask you for an operating agreement if it's an LLC, like most cases.
Right.
They will ask you for an EIN. They will ask
Mm.
for the formalities.
Mm.
So think about that. You want to apply for a grant. You are going to need those documents.
Right.
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 So when sometimes companies, you get a good contract with another company, you need to show that you're a legitimate corporation
Exactly.
or company or LLC. You
Right.
need to show those documents. So it's important to have those formalities even for your clients to
Mhm.
show that you're a legitimate operation. I think it's so important.
The next one is kind of I've had how do I say this, a situation
Mhm.
with the next questions that I'm going to ask you. A non-compete.
Mm.
What's the significance of a non-compete, right? You would sign, you know, when you get a job. Tell me what is a non-compete
Mhm.
and what it does,
Mhm.
please.
Great question.
Yeah. That is a good question and a hot topic.
Mhm.
You probably seen the FTC has tried to do away with non-competes
Right.
Mhm.
in many situations where you have regular employees sign this restrictive covenant where I'm saying I'm going to work for you in this industry
Mhm.
and I'm not going to engage in the same type of business
Mhm.
outside of that or when I leave.
Yep.
What's the problem with that? When you have corporations like McDonald's and you tell an employee who's frying potatoes,
Can't
you
go to
cannot
Burger King.
you cannot go to Burger King. Like,
This is not a paid advertisement for McDonald's, by the way.
No, it's not.
yes,
Yeah.
good disclaimer.
I'm
Now-
learning. I'm learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now think about the fact when you have a manager, for example, who might open up the same shop down the street,
Mm.
then there's value in that. Or you're selling your business or you're buying a business. Let's say I'm buying a business from you, Ryan, and
Yep.
your business is you sell those you sell microphones.
Yep.
If I'm buying that business from you, you're selling it to me. I want to know that you're not going to open up the same shop across the street
A
from me.
Microsoft shop next door.
Exactly. So that restrictive covenant has a value, and in Florida they are enforced. But the FTC, I think the concern has been that where does it apply? Okay, if it's somebody who has a power of decision in the company, who has a managerial position, who makes a certain amount of money, that makes sense. Not so much for when you have regular employees who
Right.
need work and need to find the same type
Gotcha.
of work in another
Mm.
company.
Right. So while you talk about, companies, right? So so let's just say a small business needs a place, and so it would be a lease, right? So I go somewhere and sign a lease. Why should they be careful about the type of lease that they sign and what is hidden inside these,
Mm.
massive
Mm.
documents that they need to watch out for?
Yeah. Man, leases are so important and people just sign them without any legal counsel. And think about it. When you have a commercial lease, you probably want to be there a long time. You
Right.
want to build your reputation that you have a sandwich shop here,
Right.
right? You want to be there a long time.
Right.
They're usually at least 5 years with the opportunity to
Renew.
renew
Right.
for at least
Mm.
5, 10 more years. So it's important to know what is in that contract because you're going to be tied to it for a long time and it's a lot of money.
Yep.
When you do the math of how much you're going to pay for that amount of time, it's not little money.
It's not.
Another thing is most times especially for small businesses, the landlord is going to ask you for a guarantee on that lease. They're
Mm,
going to ask you to be personally liable and
Personal
to
guarantor.
sign, exactly, to be
Yeah.
a personal guarantor of that lease.
Mm.
If everything goes wrong, then who's going to pay me my rent? Because you are
Yeah.
signing a 5-year
Right.
contract.
Right.
So it's so important. There are so many things you can look for in a lease. For example, I'm leasing this space, but I want to make renovations because my type of place, my type of business needs a certain structure. Then does that lease allow me to make those renovations?
Mm.
Do I need the landlord's consent? How is that consent going to be given? These are nuances that people, if they're not trained to
Right.
look for it, they will miss it. They will miss the language. And you might upload it to ChatGPT and say, hey, is this okay? You don't know what to ask
Right,
or
right.
what to look for.
That's right.
Words or a phrase can change the meaning of everything.
Exactly.
For example, in the consent language, let's say something goes wrong, you cannot operate your business and it's year 2, you have 3 years left on your lease. What does your lease say about subleasing?
That's right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Most lease agreements don't let you sublease
Right.
unless there's a consent.
Right.
Yeah.
There's going to
Yeah.
be a consent language that might be good, might be bad for you. It might say you cannot unless the landlord, in his absolute discretion,
Mm-hmm.
allows you to.
That sounds like a dangerous statement right there. Absolute
Right.
discretion.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So if they feel like no, then it's no.
You're right.
Now, what do you want to look for? You want to look for, as the leaseholder, as the tenant, you want to look for language that says, sure, the landlord can consent, but that consent has to be reasonable and cannot be unreasonably withheld or denied.
Yep.
That's very different.
So how
Yep.
do we know that?
You need a lawyer for that.
Thank you.
You have to hire her.
And that's the reason why I
Right.
asked you the question.
Right.
This is why you need a contract lawyer,
Yes.
And sometimes we think, because this is so small, right? We think small. It's a small place, Yeah, I need it for 5 years, but I don't think there's anything in that contract that's gonna either take my money or it's gonna jeopardize my business.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll just sign it,
Mm-hmm.
and they find it hard, later on. So I'm just so glad you're here, answering these questions because I just couldn't, and Ryan couldn't answer these questions.
That's why you're here,
That's why
because
you're here.
we don't know anything about
And
this.
this is why you need someone who actually goes to school and with the thing that you said about going to chat GPT, right? I can ask some of these questions, but I may not know the exact questions to ask, and this is
Yes.
why it's important. And the assumption that we all have is we can afford a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to say
Yes.
something about that
Yes.
before we move on to our next set of questions?
No, that's a great point. And listen, it's two things before we even talk about the money. It's again, like I said, you have a new venture, you're excited.
Right.
You just want to move forward, you're an entrepreneur, you want to get things done.
Mm.
So you don't want anybody to slow you down.
Right.
And sometimes that's how we see the business lawyer. It's a person who's gonna slow me down.
But
But the thing is, sometimes it's better to take some time and look at these things and especially involve someone
but
who's not emotionally involved in the venture. Because I don't
Bingo.
have a horse in your race.
Bingo.
I just want to do what's best to protect you.
Right.
You have the emotions, you have the feelings. I'm removed from that.
Correct.
It's not my business. And even though I want your success,
Right.
I can think and look at things in a very
Yep.
non-biased way, a
Yep.
neutral way. So are lawyers expensive? Yes. I mean, but think about it this way. Is it more expensive for me to pay a few $100s now for somebody to review my lease? Or is it more expensive when I'm stuck on year 2 or 3 of that lease and I
Right.
have $50,000 left to
Right.
pay on that contract?
Right.
And now I'm in court because the landlord is suing me for eviction.
Right.
And now I need to pay for the landlord's attorney's fees because
right,
that's in
that's
that
right.
contract.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
better believe
Right,
that
right.
if you're not paying the landlord and he
Yeah.
prevails,
Yeah.
you're paying for your lawyer to represent
right.
you and his lawyer to
That's right.
represent you.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fees right there. So thinking about it in those terms, prevention is always cheaper than mitigation.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So now let's talk about, I don't know if you have any questions for it, but let's talk about business, buying a business, then selling a business. Because I know that there's a lot of contracts, right? Someone who has a small business, it's doing good, and they want to, venture out and maybe what do you call it? Sell some shares into it.
Mhm.
So if I have a business and I'm selling it, when it comes to contracts, most people don't know where they can go and sell a business.
Mhm.
Is there anything you want to share or tell us? Have anybody come to you and said, "Hey, I'm selling a business. I don't know how to do that. I don't know the type of contracts that I need. How can you help me?"
Yes, that's a big part of what I do, and so it depends on what type of business you have. For example, just recently, I've been helping a client. There were two owners of a corporation. One is buying out the other.
Mm.
That's a stock purchase agreement.
Okay.
So that's how you structure that.
Okay.
Now, let's say you have a business, you're selling some assets of that business, not the company, but the
Okay.
assets of that
Gotcha.
business. What are assets of a business? The client list, contracts you may
Mm.
have,
Mm.
the lease,
Yep.
all of those are assets of the name, social media
So you
platforms.
can sell these things too?
Those are
Interesting.
assets of
I
the
didn't know
business.
that.
I never would have thought social media. It makes sense when you say it,
Yes.
Yeah.
but someone like you, to your point, someone that doesn't do this
Yeah.
professionally,
Yeah.
that's not something you're going to think
Yeah.
of.
Asset selling. Yeah.
An
Okay.
email list. I
Wow.
mean, think
Yep.
about the power of a Google business profile
Wow.
for a
Yes.
business.
That's right.
And if I'm purchasing that goodwill from you, that reputation you've
Yeah.
already built in
Mhm.
the community,
Right.
that's going to be an asset
That's
of mine.
right. That's
That's
right.
going to cost me money.
Yep.
So that is an asset sale. You do an asset purchase agreement.
Wow.
So it's a good distinction because people think buying a business means buying the company,
Right.
Mhm.
but when you buy the assets, you leave the liabilities out.
Mhm.
So that means, in general terms, I'm only buying the good. I'm buying the assets of the business. But if you had a lawsuit, if you
Mhm.
had pending taxes, if you had employment issues,
Mhm.
all of that I'm not buying.
Right.
That belongs to your company.
Mm.
I'm buying the assets.
You said, what did you say? The good stuff, not the good stuff.
Not the good stuff.
The good assets.
You're buying the good assets.
Yes,
I don't want the
not the
bad stuff.
I don't want the
liability.
bad stuff. Right. Right.
I like that.
Oh,
So
that's good.
so that is one of the main things is
Mm.
what are you actually buying and just limiting your liability, because when a company is operating, there's a lot to think about.
Yep.
And there can be, are you up to date on taxes? Are you up to date on all of your employment matters? Are you up to date? So all of that you have to consider.
Nice.
Wow.
Are long-term contracts better than short-term contracts, or it depends on what it is and the type of business?
A good contract is better than a bad contract, is what I'll say.
Solid answer.
Regardless of whether it's short or long. Why? Because you can be in a short contract that's bad and it won't allow you to get out in a good way.
Okay.
So what I tell people, you need to be sure that there's a termination clause in your contract.
Mm.
What happens if things go wrong? If I don't deliver, if you don't pay me?
But
So it might be short, but it's not giving me a dispute resolution
I got you.
provision,
Yep.
for
Right,
example.
right, right.
So you can be in a long contract where we have thought about all the different scenarios that can come up and how to resolve that, and then you're good.
Yep.
It
Good.
doesn't matter if it's long.
Nice.
So what
nice.
I'm getting from what you just said is the length isn't so important as the language being tight.
Correct. Yeah.
So we are getting close to the end of our show. So last questions that I have for you. If you have to say anything to any business owner right now, something that um they can take from this interview, what would it be? Something positive.
Okay.
Final
No,
takeaway.
no doom.
Right.
No more legal
Right.
doom.
Truth. The truth.
I think business is wonderful. I'm a business owner myself of my law firm. I think what we need to consider is bring in the professionals that can really help you succeed,
good,
and
good,
that is
good.
going to
Good
be
to hear.
a great asset for you.
That's good. That's
Great.
good. So, I don't have any more question, and this is the end of our show. I just want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I've
you.
learned a lot, and I know, our, audience, uh, um, um, gain a lot from this.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I'm going to ask you is, how do we get in touch with you? How do someone, if someone wants to reach out to you into a contract, or maybe they have, you do give consultation. So
Yes.
how would they reach out to you? So we'll also put the link on the description, but tell us, how do they get in touch with you?
Yes, they can find me on all of social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, as South Florida Business Attorney. That is also my website, SoFlo
Love it.
Business Attorney.
SoFlo Business Attorney. Okay.
Yeah, they can look up Mayelin Stevenson. They'll find it.
That's awesome.
And they can get in touch with me through email, phone, and social
You
media.
want to give a phone number, or?
Yes, the number is 954-601-4088.
All right.
Really easy to remember too.
Yeah, really easy. I just don't remember it, but it's really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, thank you for being here. It's
Thank
it's
you.
it's a privilege just to just have you.
It's an
Thank
honor
you
to
so
be
much.
here.
So again, thank you for watching Access 1776. I'm BJ, and this is my co-host Ryan. See you on the next show.